In this lesson, we'll finish up our work on the left thigh's Flexi Line. So we just have some cleanup work to do. And the great thing is that we've done these steps already when we set up the spine and neck. So we need a convenient way to control this mid-bend control object. Before we create an object to attach to this, let's go ahead and grab that object and just rename it with the prefix anim, like we've done for the other controls. And now we're ready to create that object. I'll go to the side view. Let's go to our create panel and we'll create a circle. Just go ahead and add that quickly and move back to our perspective view. And let's go ahead and head over to our modify panel and give this a radius of 1. Now, let's make sure to quick align this to our mid-bend control. I'll now go ahead and switch the coordinate system here to world. And we'll go ahead and start to move this forward in our y-axis. So as we do, we can keep track of the value that we work with here, so we can use that same value for the right leg. That's one option, or another option is to go ahead and mirror this across. Either way, it looks like about a value of, let's say, -4 would work well. But just to know for sure, let's go ahead and bring back our model to make sure the control isn't too close to our geometry. I'd almost want to bring this out a little bit further. So let's go to that y-axis and let's go ahead and set this value to, let's say, about 5. Alright, so -5 is what we'll use for the thighs, and for the shins we might go ahead and use a lesser value to keep them a little bit closer in. But we'll worry about that when it's time. Alright, so we can now go ahead and hide our model. Let's work on attaching this object. We'll go ahead and select our mid-bend control. Underneath the modify panel, we'll go ahead and find our attach tool and attach this object. Alright, great. So once we right click to exit the attach tool, you'll see that we now have a convenient way to bend the leg. And it's all going to follow. Very fun. Take a look at that. This rig is coming together very well. Alright, so once we have this object in place, we want to make sure it's added to our controls layer. So let's take care of that. Great. Alright, so from there, we can then move to updating our squash and stretch expression. We know how to do that. Let's go ahead and move back to layers, and let's go ahead and find the Flexi hidden layer for the left thigh. We'll need to now go ahead and update the expression on helpers D, C, and B. So with D selected, grabbing the bone object, again we can press page up to get to BNDRV. That's the object that the expression is tied to. Let's go to our motion panel. Let's go ahead and find the expression for the x-axis. We'll start there. Remember, we want to debug this, and that's going to give us the length we need to work with. So that's 7.7531. Let's go ahead and use that, 7.7531. All right, great. So once we've got this value in, remember we need to update our global variable, and it needs to point at the global controls scale axis. There it is. All right, we're good to go here. Let's go ahead and update that. Let's go ahead and copy that value of 7.531. Let's go ahead and use that for the z-axis. So we'll go there. We'll replace the 10 with that value. Again, that's 7.7531. We'll go back to our global variable and we'll assign the scale y. And now we can go ahead and evaluate. All right, so that's the process for the others. I'll go ahead and pause the video and take care of the other helpers since these steps are exactly the same. All right, so I've finished up the expression on object B. Let's go ahead and close this out. And now we can work on two more tasks. We can work on creating volume channels that we can tie the Flexi Global's volume attribute to, and then we can clean up a few more objects by adding them to our layers. All right, so let's go in and grab our pelvis control. Let's go to the modify panel, and we're going to go in and create more parameters here for our leg volume, and we might as well take care of the same thing for our arm volume. So we'll start with the pelvis. Let's press Alt-1, and here we'll just go in and work with a Boolean parameter type. Let's go ahead and work with check box, and let's go ahead and name this first one L leg vol underscore active. All right, we'll hit enter to take a look. It looks like we need to increase the width of this channel. I'll go ahead and set that to 100, and that looks like it works. All right, so we'll now go ahead and choose add. Once that's been added, we'll need to do the same thing for the others. So the next parameter is going to be for the right leg. That's going to be R underscore leg vol underscore active. It might be a good idea to go ahead and copy this. Okay, everything else looks good. Let's go ahead and choose add. All right, we'll now go ahead and move over to the chest. Now before we do, it looks like this new parameter, it's getting cut off just slightly. So if you ever needed to update this, you most certainly can. Let me go ahead and show you how. Just go ahead and choose edit here with the object selected, and at that point you can go ahead and select the parameter that needs to be modified. So it looks like the width needs to be increased a little bit more. I'll go ahead and set this to 110. So when we hit enter, you can see that that's going to work just fine. So we need to do a few things here. We need to choose accept parameter changes, and then we need to choose apply changes, and there we have it. All right, so if that ever happens, it's very simple to update. Let's go ahead and add our parameters now to the chest control, and then we can work on wiring our volume parameter. So the chest control is selected. Again, we're using the same steps here. Let's go ahead and paste in our name, and that's going to be L arm volume active. All right, everything else looks good. Let's go ahead and choose add. And now we'll go ahead and create one more for the right arm. So that's right arm vol active, and we'll choose add. All right, great. So all of these are in place. We don't have to worry about that later. So we know now we need to work with wire parameters. So we can go ahead and control this active switch. Let's go ahead and select our pelvis control, and we'll go ahead and right-click, choose wire parameters. Let's go ahead and find modified object, extra controls, and here it is, left leg volume. We'll tie that into our Flexi Globals, modified object, global volume, active. And that's going to be a direct connection. All right, great. So if we were to select our global node for the Flexi Line, we'll notice that that parameter is off. Okay, when we go back to the pelvis, when we turn that on, it should be on now. All right, great. So we can now go ahead and do some cleanup work. Let's go back to layers. With the Flexi Global node selected, we know that we need to add that back to the Flexi Hidden layer. So let's do that. We might just go in and hide that layer so we can keep track of what else we need to hide. We know that we need to go in and hide our connect curves. So we'll go ahead and control-click both and add them to that same layer. From there, we'll go ahead and select our helpers that need to be added to the bones layer. Now you can see that we have a few overlapping, so we might just go to the hidden layer and go ahead and hide that to get to these a little bit easier. So I'll just go in and grab these bones here and add them back to our bones layer. All right, so now we can go ahead and hide that layer and take a look at what else we'll need to have stored. We've already stored our bend control. We can take a look at that. So it looks like everything's nice and clean. We can bring back our controls. We can bring back the bone objects. That looks good. We can now bring back the hidden layer. All right, so that will finish up our work here. In the next lesson, we're ready to set up the Flexi Line for our shin.